My name is Ella Carter. On Christmas Eve last year, as the wind whipped snowflakes against the window, I was staring into the oven at a roast chicken sizzling and glistening with golden oil, thinking that this would be the warmest holiday of my life, firewood crackling softly in the hearth. A table adorned with holly branches I'd carefully arranged myself. Even the candles were specially chosen, each with a zesty citrus scent. I'd been looking forward to gathering around the table with my family, free from any competition or need to prove ourselves, just bathed in the gentle warmth of the soft light falling softly on everyone's faces. But then, as the door hinge let out a faint creak, Mia Carter pushed open the door, standing in the entryway holding a tray overflowing with gold-plated dishes. In an instant, the savory aroma of roasted chicken wafting from my kitchen was completely overshadowed by the scent of cedar perfume she wore and the rich, luxurious aroma of her gourmet meal. Even the cozy glow of the fireplace seemed to dim slightly. She stepped in like a star who naturally commands the spotlight, her snow-covered boots crunching softly beneath her feet. Her face wore that perfectly practiced smile, a smile uniquely honed by years of public relations work, and as soon as she spoke, her voice carried a note of genuine kindness. "I figured you might be too busy, so I brought along some dishes everyone loves." I glanced at Jack, her husband, standing behind her, still clutching two even larger thermal containers. Suddenly, it all clicked. The 3 months of anticipation I'd been hoarding had turned into a joke the moment she pushed open the door. No one had expected me to lose it that night, not even myself. To this day, I can still vividly recall the crisp, sharp sound of the silver fork hitting the porcelain plate, the sound of years of silence I'd been holding onto finally shattering. It all began the week before Christmas, rewriting the course of both Mia's and my lives in a way none of us could have ever imagined. Before I tell you how that carefully planned dinner turned into a family battleground, let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves, have you ever hidden your own grievances just to preserve a decent gathering? After you've heard my story, come back and share your answer with me. The week before Christmas, warm yellow string lights hung among the old brick walls of Brighton, lending the entire town the glow of a glass globe dipped in honey, quiet yet brimming with the lively spirit of holiday cheer. For the first time in years, I'm eager to host a family gathering all by myself. This is my first Christmas in my new apartment. The second-floor unit overlooks the old elm tree on Cambridge Street. As a floral designer, I've personally wrapped silver-leafed chrysanthemums and dried berries around the windowsills, adorned the front door with a wreath of eucalyptus leaves, and arranged candles on the windowsills that fill the air with the scent of citrus and pine needles. What I've always wanted isn't luxury, it's a sense of groundedness, a feeling of belonging to me, so I invited my parents, Richard and Clara, and my sister Mia. This is the first time I'll be hosting a family dinner, and beneath my pride lies a touch of nervousness. Mia and I weren't always at odds. We used to squeeze onto the same bed, whispering secrets and sharing chocolates, even making plans to open a little shop together. But after I went to Boston to study floral design, everything started to change. Mia stayed behind, becoming an account manager at a well-known PR firm, and whenever we'd talk on the phone, she'd casually downplay it. Floral design is just a little gimmicky business. Why not get a stable job instead? When others praise my work, she'll pretend to agree on the surface, then turn around and say, "Don't take it too seriously, people are just being polite." Her words feel like tiny shards of ice, settling deep within me and never quite melting away. Mia has an innate need to control everything. Wherever she goes, it's as if she's the center of the stage, always determined to come out on top. Her parents often tell everyone she's reliable, but in reality, Mia has always held the reins of power in this family. As long as she's around, I'm left standing in the corner, doing my absolute best to prove that I'm not just some little girl who can't grow up. Richard and Clara may love us both, but they've always favored Mia. She has a respectable job with a steady income, while I, and florist running a small studio, will always carry that label of unreliable in their eyes. My boyfriend, Finn, is the only one who truly understands this inner restlessness of mine. He runs an independent bookstore, and whenever I start worrying about table decorations, he'll smile, hand me an old photo album, and join me in carefully selecting the right length of holly branches and deciding where to place the candles. "You don't have to prove anything to anyone," he said, holding my hand, his fingertips still bearing the faint calluses left by turning pages. "The flowers you arrange and the dishes you cook, they're all a reflection of how deeply you put your heart into them. That's more than enough." I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew this dinner wasn't just about celebrating the holiday. I wanted my parents to see that I could turn life into poetry, that I could build a warm home, and finally stop being the little kid who only knows how to fuss over flowers, in Mia's words. That evening, as I sat on the sofa making a grocery list, my phone suddenly vibrated. It was a text from Mia, a single, terse line, devoid of emotion or warmth. "I'll bring some dishes over, just in case you're not prepared enough." I stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, my fingertips icy cold. I wrestled with whether to ask her what she meant, but in the end, I simply replied, "Okay." I forced myself not to overthink it, yet those words felt like snow falling onto my heart, growing heavier and thicker with each passing moment. Back then, I had no idea that this one text message would be the final straw that broke my already frayed patience. On Christmas morning, Brighton was filled with the warm aroma of cinnamon rolls and hot cocoa, while outside the window, snowflakes drifted down gently like goose feathers, accumulating in a thin layer on the rooftops. My apartment was brimming with cozy warmth, and I'd woken up before dawn, chopping onions, preparing sauces, brushing honey onto the roast chicken. Even the baking pan itself was one I'd deliberately switched to a sleek white porcelain model. The scent of roasted herbs and apple pie mingled with the crisp freshness of eucalyptus leaves, a morning exactly as I'd dreamed it, tranquil, fulfilling, every bit of busyness tinged with anticipation. Finn was setting the table in the living room. He was wearing an off-white sweater with rolled-up sleeves, a tiny smudge of flour on his cheek, and clutching an old book in his hand, saying he'd place it right in the center of the table as a decorative touch. "Everything feels perfectly staged, just like a scene straight out of a picture book." He smiled, carefully placing the silver cutlery beside each plate. I returned his smile, though my heart was still pounding. I hoped this day would go smoothly, not just for myself, but also for my parents. I wanted them to see that even I, the restless florist, could make our home warm and secure. At exactly 10 o'clock, the doorbell rang, and my heart suddenly clenched tight. I wiped my hands with a towel and hurried to open the door. Mia stood at the threshold, wearing a burgundy coat and with snowflakes clinging to her shoulders. Her husband, Jack, followed close behind, carrying 2 large insulated containers. Their 2 children bounced in joyfully, each clutching colorful balloons. As always, Mia looked radiant, her makeup was flawless, and even her hair was meticulously styled. She looked less like she was heading to a family dinner and more like she was about to attend an evening gala. "Merry Christmas, Ella," she said, her tone calm and composed. Her gaze quickly swept across the table and the kitchen, carrying a barely perceptible hint of scrutiny. "You've really put some effort into this." Before I could even reply, she strode right in and gestured for Jack to place the thermal container on the counter. "I've been collaborating with a high-end restaurant. I asked them specifically to prepare some signature dishes," she said, casually removing her gloves. "It's your first time hosting a dinner party, and I was worried you might not have enough food for everyone, so I brought along a bit extra." Her words sounded perfectly polite and well-intentioned, yet they felt like a tiny blade, precisely piercing my heart. I felt a warmth spreading through my chest, but I still forced a smile and said softly, "Thanks, you'll definitely have enough to go around." Soon after, my parents arrived as well. Richard wore a dark gray coat, and Clara wrapped herself in a beige scarf. Both greeted us with warm smiles and hugs. For a brief moment, the atmosphere in the apartment almost returned to normal. Finn was making hot cocoa, and the children's laughter echoed through the room as the logs crackled softly in the fireplace. But soon enough, Mia began pacing back and forth in the kitchen. She lifted pot lids, peeked into my mixing bowls, and even moved the holly sprigs I'd placed on the dining table to a corner without so much as asking for permission. I tried hard to tell myself she meant well, but before long, she'd started replacing the dishes I'd prepared altogether. My roasted vegetables were pushed aside in favor of her truffle mashed potatoes, and my apple pie was tucked behind the raspberry mousse she'd brought along, just to give everyone more options, she said. When our neighbors came over, the old friends who dropped by to wish us a Merry Christmas, Mia took complete charge of the table. With the charisma typical of a PR professional, she introduced the dishes she'd brought, describing the ingredients and cooking methods as if she were hosting a product launch event. These are signature dishes from that star-rated restaurant downtown. I specifically ordered them through their head chef, she said with a smile to her parents. I figured, since we're all getting together for once, we ought to treat ourselves to something good, something reliable and classy. The words reliable and classy echoed in my mind, exactly the kind of words my parents would use to describe her. Standing in the kitchen doorway, I watched as people scrambled to grab the dishes she'd brought, none of them uttering a harsh word. Yet that silent preference felt even more suffocating than outright criticism. Finn gave me a look, trying to calm me down, but my throat was already parched and burning. Clara took Mia's hand, praising her for being so thoughtful and considerate. Richard nodded, saying, "Mia really does think things through so carefully." And there I stood, frozen in place, still holding the unwashed plate in my hand, as if none of this had anything to do with me at all. Deep down, every laugh and every compliment felt like a heavy weight pressing against my chest, making it hard for me to breathe. At one point, Mia caught my gaze. She leaned slightly over the dining table, laughing and chatting with Richard, her hand gently brushing his arm as she said something like, "Some people, when hosting their first dinner party, can't help but overlook a few details." When she glanced back at me, a faint smile curled up at the corner of her lips, a smile so subtle yet brimming with the smug satisfaction of a victor. She'd won again, as always, turning every single moment into yet another piece of evidence proving that I'm no match for her. I tried hard to focus on the flickering flames in the fireplace, on the snowflakes drifting softly outside the window, on anything that could remind me that this was still Christmas. Finn quietly slipped beside me, took my hand, and whispered, "Don't let her ruin all your hard work." But the damage was already done. Every single dish on the table had become a competition I'd never agreed to join. The laughter kept going, and I leaned against the kitchen doorframe, watching my family eat food that wasn't mine, watching the living room I'd carefully decorated being subtly suffused with Mia's presence. Suddenly, I felt as though this home no longer belonged to me at all. It was no longer a warm, cozy dinner. It had turned into a meticulously orchestrated performance by Mia, a show designed to prove that she was better than everyone else. Once everyone had left, I finally lost it. The apartment was eerily silent. Finn quietly cleared the dishes, his movements so gentle they seemed afraid to shatter whatever last bit of composure I still had left. No sooner had my parents' figures disappeared behind the closing door than I spun around to face Mia. She was calmly packing up the leftovers, exuding that same self-assured aura unique to a PR professional. My voice trembled, yet I forced myself to ask, "Why did you do this?" "What are you doing?" She pretended to be surprised. "You've replaced all my dishes, deliberately embarrassing me. What exactly are you trying to prove?" Mia chuckled softly. "I'm just helping you out. It's your first time hosting a dinner party. What if everyone can't get used to the food and it's embarrassing for you?" "Helping me? You're humiliating me," I shouted. "It's just that you can't stand the thought of me doing anything right." She sighed impatiently. "You're overreacting again. I just want everyone to enjoy the meal. You haven't even tasted any of my dishes," I said, my voice breaking with tears. Finn stepped forward, his tone firm. "Mia, Ella's been busy preparing this meal for 3 days straight. You ought to show her some respect." Instantly, Mia's smile vanished, and her voice turned icy cold. "I didn't expect you to take her side. I just didn't want her to mess up the holiday." My patience snapped completely. "It's you who insisted on coming here and stirring up trouble." Clara's voice cut in. "Stop arguing. Today is Christmas." Mia instantly put on a pouty expression, "Mom, I was just trying to help. Ella just doesn't understand me." Richard patted my shoulder and said, "Ella, stop being so stubborn. Your sister's only doing this for your own good." I stared at him, each word carefully enunciated. "You'll always take her side, won't you?" His silence was answer enough. A smug little smirk curled Mia's lips. I wiped away my tears, my voice icy cold. "Please leave, take your stuff, and get out of my house." Her face was filled with shock as she blurted out, "You're being totally unreasonable." Then, seething with anger, she grabbed the thermal container, walked toward the door, turned back, and shot one last venomous remark, "You'll regret this." With a loud bang, the door slammed shut. My parents, their faces pale, rose silently without saying a word and left the room. Finn pulled me into his arms. The logs in the fireplace slowly died down, and the room grew colder and colder, leaving behind nothing but a silence even colder than the snow outside the window. 2 days later, my phone kept buzzing incessantly from the moment I woke up in the morning until late at night. It never stopped. Half asleep and half awake, I reached for my phone, and the screen was flooded with Mia Carter's name. She'd posted a long public message on social media, accompanied by a photo of our whole family taken last Christmas. The caption began with these words, "The most heartbreaking Christmas Eve kicked out of my own home by my own sister." My heart sank, and my fingers trembled as I started reading. In her post, Mia said she'd kindly brought delicious food over to help Ella host the dinner party, but instead of being thanked, she'd been unfairly accused and verbally abused by me, and ultimately thrown out of the house. She portrayed me as selfish, overly sensitive, and fiercely jealous, claiming that because my flower business wasn't going well, I'd taken out all my frustration on her. Worse yet, she even fabricated stories about me breaking plates and cursing at my parents, all of which were completely false. That post was written with tears in its eyes and brimming with vivid details. Paired with her haggard selfie, it convinced everyone who hadn't known the truth to believe it wholeheartedly. Soon enough, the comment section exploded. Dozens of people rushed to comfort her. One person said, "Mia, you're just too kind. You shouldn't have to endure something like this." Another went even further, leaving scathing comments directed at me, calling me a grateful-less wolf, toxic, and jealous of my sister's success. As I scrolled through the screen, the room seemed to spin around me. Every single line felt like a knife, twisting and turning again and again inside my heart. Finn tried to take the phone from my hand, urging me to stop reading, but I couldn't look away. "She's lying. She's making it all up," I cried, my voice trembling uncontrollably. He held me silently, saying nothing at all, just gently patting my back. He knew that no words could ever erase the hurt deep within me. By noon, Mia's post had already gone beyond the boundaries of our friend circle. Many mutual acquaintances started sending messages, some politely inquiring, others bluntly accusing. A client who'd once hired me for floral arrangements wrote, "Ella, I never would have imagined you were capable of something like this. Mia's such a wonderful person, how could you treat her this way?" I put down my phone, but the ringing kept going on, sounding like an uncontrolled bomb. In the afternoon, Clara called, her tone heavy and firm. "Ella, everyone's talking about our family. You've got to apologize to Mia and put this whole thing behind us." I asked her if she'd even bothered to find out the truth, but she replied, "The truth doesn't matter. It's our family's reputation and Mia's career that count. Just say you acted impulsively. I'm not wrong, I'll never apologize." On the other end of the line, Richard's voice was laced with disappointment. "Ella, don't be stubborn. Don't ruin Mia's future." I hung up the phone right then and there. Sitting by the window, watching the snowflakes fall, the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. Mia had meticulously planned this whole thing. She exaggerated the difficulties at my studio, lied about how I'd refused her help, and portrayed herself as the wronged, caring older sister. Every single word she uttered was a deliberate attempt to smear my reputation. That evening, Finn brought me a warm glass of milk and said softly, "Ella, you can't let her control the truth. You've got to speak up and tell the real story." My heart was filled with anger and deep hurt. Just then, I refreshed the page and saw that Mia had posted another edited photo, zooming in on my figure in the kitchen, blurring my expression and focusing solely on her own reddened eyes, accompanied by the caption, "The person closest to me has hurt me the most." At that moment, my sadness turned into a fierce determination. I'm going to tell the truth. I can't let her slander me anymore. Finn looked at me with unwavering support and said, "I'll be right there with you." For years, Mia has twisted the truth, painting me as an immature younger sister. But this time, I'm no longer staying silent. On the weekend, I opened up a social media live stream. Although my heart was pounding with nerves, I felt strangely determined. I organized photos of my dinner preparations, surveillance footage, and Mia's text messages, then watched as lies spread rapidly online, yet all I could think about was one thing: to speak the truth. The ring light softly illuminated the kitchen. Just a few days ago, everything here had fallen apart. I sat on a stool, facing the camera. Finn stood behind the lens, quietly by my side, holding the evidence I'd carefully gathered. Taking a deep breath, I began speaking, in a calm tone, my voice steady. "Hello everyone. I'm Ella. I know some of you have seen posts about me this week. Today, I don't want to get into an argument. I just want to share what really happened on Christmas Eve." From beginning to end, I never once mentioned Mia's name. I referred to her only as a family member. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply trying to tell the truth. I showed photos of the dinner I'd prepared, from sourcing ingredients to plating and garnishing, each one a testament to the care and effort I'd poured into it. I explained that I'm a floral designer, and those holly branches she'd moved aside had been arranged by me over an entire afternoon. Then, I played a short video captured by our home surveillance camera. The video showed me smiling as I set the plates on the table, carefully arranging everything with meticulous attention to detail. Just then, Mia walked in, carrying her insulated container. Without saying a word, she grabbed my plate and placed her own dish right where mine had been, never once asking for my permission. As the video played, I remained silent, letting the silence speak for me. When the video ended, I looked straight into the camera, my eyes filled not with anger, but with calmness. I'm not trying to blame anyone. I just want to remind everyone that some forms of hurt are hidden beneath the guise of doing what's best for you. I just want to protect the home I've carefully prepared, and I'd like to receive a little bit of respect, even if it's just a tiny bit. My comment section immediately lit up with lively discussions. "Oh my gosh, this is just so unfair. To have a carefully prepared dinner treated like this," one person wrote. "She's really so gentle. Despite all the hurt she's endured, she still doesn't want to blame anyone," another commented. From behind the camera, Finn gave me a small nod, his eyes brimming with pride. Within an hour, the live stream had racked up tens of thousands of views, and the truth about Ella's Christmas Eve began spreading across various platforms. People started editing clips from the video, debating topics like family boundaries, emotional manipulation, and the hidden harm that often gets overshadowed by favoritism. I never imagined things would escalate this far, and even less did I expect so many people would understand where I was coming from. By Sunday evening, several emotional bloggers and family therapists were talking about this story, and some people even reached out to me, inviting me to share my thoughts on family boundaries. When someone asked me, "How can you stay so calm?" I spoke from the heart. For years, I'd believed that silence was peace, that if I adjusted it out, I could achieve harmony, but I was wrong. Silence only protects those who hurt you. It only allows the truth to be buried. The response was incredible. Hundreds of messages flooded my inbox. Some people shared their own experiences of being overlooked by loved ones or hurt by favoritism. Others said, "Your story has given me the courage to speak up about my own grievances." In that moment, I suddenly felt as though all the pain I'd endured finally had meaning. Mia tried to fight back, posting a statement insisting the video had been taken out of context and accusing me of trying to hype up the studio, but she couldn't produce a single piece of evidence to support her claims of being insulted. Netizens quickly exposed her lies, unfollowed her, and criticized her for lacking respect. Finally, the truth pierced through her facade. Leaning into Finn's arms, I felt an overwhelming sense of relief. I hadn't been fighting to win, I'd simply been speaking out about the injustice I'd suffered. Bold 1 month later, the storm had subsided, but Mia found herself mired in an even deeper predicament. The well-known PR firm in Seattle where she worked, which placed great importance on its reputation, fired her on the grounds that publicly spreading rumors had damaged the company's image. Clients and colleagues within the industry quickly distanced themselves from her as well. She posted a video apologizing, but her tone remained defensive, and she subtly accused me of making the matter public. Netizens criticized her apology as insincere. Mia deleted all her social media accounts and went into complete seclusion. To make matters worse, her husband Jack, a catering supplier, saw his business suffer as a result of her involvement. Clients began to leave, and his career hit a serious slump. Unable to take it anymore, Jack finally broke off relations with Mia, saying, "I can accept that you're ambitious, but I can't accept that you lie to hurt others and refuse to admit your mistakes." He then packed up his belongings, took their children, and left, leaving behind only a note telling her to learn honesty and respect before they could ever talk about getting back together. Left utterly abandoned by everyone, Mia became both pitiful and hated in Brighton town. Bold. A few days later, Clara called me with a choked voice, pleading with me to visit Mia, who was on the verge of collapse. She's lost her job. Her child has left, and she just can't go on anymore. My heart was filled with mixed emotions. I made it clear, I don't hate her, but I can't pretend everything's fine either. I can come see her, but I'll keep a healthy distance. Clara apologized guiltily, admitting that she'd previously neglected my feelings. That very afternoon, I brought Mia her favorite white roses and went to visit her. Her hair was disheveled, her eyes swollen and red. She'd long since lost the radiant confidence she'd once had as a public relations manager. As soon as she saw me, she broke down and burst into tears. I handed her the roses and softly said, "I'm here for you." As she cried, she offered a heartfelt apology, no excuses, just deep remorse. I listened quietly, saying nothing about forgiveness. Some wounds can never truly be healed, but at least now she'd finally acknowledged her mistakes. This Christmas, light snowflakes were drifting gently through the town of Brighton. It's been a year since last year's turmoil, and my floral studio has grown even more successful. I've also opened a floral experience shop on Cambridge Street. Finn's independent bookstore has moved next door, and now we're together day in and day out. Our days are calm and happy. My relationship with my parents has gradually eased as well. They no longer take Mia's side. Instead, they've started visiting me on their own initiative and genuinely showing concern for me. Finally, they've learned to see and acknowledge my feelings. Mia, too, is slowly getting better. She's found a job as a florist's assistant, a job that may not be glamorous, but it's steady and reliable. She's put aside her competitive streak and learned to respect boundaries. Occasionally, she'll send me a message or bring me some floral materials. We maintain a respectful distance now, yet there's more mutual respect between us. Every now and then, I still find myself thinking about last Christmas Eve, the ruined dinner, the tears of hurt and frustration. But I'm no longer sad. On the contrary, I feel a sense of gratitude. It was precisely that scandalous episode, which tore away all pretense, that allowed me to finally shed my people-pleasing facade, to face my own hurts head-on, and to learn how to stand firm and set boundaries for myself. Turns out, true family harmony isn't about enduring compromises, it's about being genuinely seen and respected by one another. This Christmas Eve, we didn't make any elaborate preparations, yet I felt a sense of ease I'd never experienced before. Finn had already set up the Christmas tree we'd picked out in the living room. Its branches were adorned with simple glass ornaments and dried flowers, all materials left over from my studio. They weren't expensive, but they were brimming with thoughtfulness. My parents arrived early, and Clara, instead of asking me as usual, "Is Mia coming?" just sat on the sofa, watching Finn arrange books, and softly asked me, "Have you been busy at the studio lately?" Meanwhile, Richard took the initiative to head into the kitchen, helping me pick vegetables, and awkwardly tried to imitate everything I'd done before, carving little floral designs into carrots. Though his carvings were crooked and uneven, they filled the kitchen with laughter. Mia arrived in the evening, carrying a tiny food container in her hand. She wasn't wearing last year's gold-trimmed tray or meticulously applied makeup. Instead, she wore a simple beige sweater and her hair was casually tied back behind her ears. She stood in the entryway, smiling somewhat awkwardly. I baked some cookies, kids taught me how, and thought I'd bring them over for everyone to try. I took the container from her hand, and as our fingertips brushed briefly, there was no deliberate intimacy. I just said softly, "Come on in. The hot cocoa's almost ready." She stepped inside, her gaze sweeping across the holly branches I'd arranged on the dining table. This time, she didn't move them at all. Instead, she murmured quietly, "The flowers you arranged, they're still just as beautiful." Finn promptly handed her a steaming cup of hot cocoa, easing her initial discomfort. The children were bustling around the Christmas tree, occasionally tugging at Mia's hand, urging her to tell them a story. The smile on her face, it was a relaxed, tender smile I hadn't seen in ages. At dinner, the table was set with roasted chicken and roasted vegetables that I'd prepared, along with the cookies Mia had brought. No one's dish was singled out for special praise, and no one's effort went unnoticed. Clara took a bite of the roasted vegetables I'd made and said earnestly, "Ella's cooking is getting better and better, way more delicious than last year's." Richard nodded in agreement. "Yeah, food made with heart really does taste different." Mia lowered her head and sipped her soup quietly, saying softly, "I was the one who was wrong before, always trying to prove myself and neglecting how you felt." I looked at her, my heart utterly calm. I simply said, "It's all in the past now. Things are just fine the way they are." There was no grand gesture of forgiveness, no deliberate attempt at making amends, just a casual, understated remark. It's all in the past, hiding within it our mutual sense of relief. As the night deepened, snowflakes began to fall again, drifting gently onto the window pane and spreading a faint, pale white hue. The children had fallen asleep, leaning against the sofa. Finn gently covered them with blankets. Their parents sat nearby, chatting softly. Meanwhile, Mia helped me clear the table, moving slowly yet meticulously. Standing by the window, I gazed at the snowy scene outside and, under the warm, golden glow of the lights inside, saw one calm face after another. Suddenly, it dawned on me. The so-called unfading reconciliation is never about returning to that once intimate yet fraught with resentment state. Rather, it's about embracing the wounds of the past while still being willing to give each other a respectful distance, slowly learning to coexist within the boundaries of mutual respect. When Mia left, I walked her to the door. She glanced back at the room, then looked at me again and softly said, "Can I come again next Christmas? I'll bring the kids and the cookies I baked." "Of course you can," I replied with a smile. "I'll even bake that apple pie you love." She nodded, turned around, and stepped into the snowy night, her footsteps now much lighter and more buoyant. I stood at the doorway until her figure disappeared around the corner, then gently closed the door behind me. Finn came up beside me and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Are you happy?" I leaned into his embrace, watching the flames flicker in the fireplace. "It's not because everyone's finally back, it's because I no longer have to force myself just to gain others' approval." It turns out that the greatest growth comes from learning to make peace with an imperfect family and with your own imperfections. The greatest happiness lies in holding firm to your own boundaries, loving those who truly deserve your love, and living a life that isn't defined by anyone else's expectations. If you've ever felt wronged within your family or hidden your true self just to maintain appearances, please remember, silence won't win you respect, and compromise won't bring harmony. Be brave enough to express your feelings, stand firm on your boundaries, even if it means tearing down the facade of propriety or temporarily losing something along the way, because one day, you'll realize that the respect you fought for and the relationships built without forcing yourself are precisely what bring the most genuine warmth and stability. On this Christmas Eve, there's no competition, no need to prove anything, just the gentle glow of warm light on our faces and the quiet, unburdened ease of respecting each other, The snow is still falling, yet the wind no longer feels cold. The story goes on. And reconciliation has never truly ended, and I, at last, have found myself living in a world where I'm seen and respected for who I am. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. Family stories can hurt, but they can also bring healing. They remind us that, even in our deepest conflicts, truth and kindness can coexist. If someone were to humiliate you in your own home, what would you do? Share your thoughts below. I truly cherish every single comment, and I deeply appreciate every heart that chooses to listen before judging. If this story resonated with your own family boundaries, please share it with those who need to hear it. Sometimes, stories can help people finally say the things they've always been too afraid to voice. Subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories, where healing quietly begins and peace often starts with silence.